Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today we're going to be discussing stress, anxiety, and the Myelin Sheath. Let's get into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. Okay, so this video is representing some things that I have only recently begun to learn about, and I was hesitating to even make the video. But honestly, I have been seeing some really great results in my own life from incorporating some of these things. And so I wanted to go ahead and share with anybody else who might be dealing with, especially prolonged stress, whether it is an emotional stress or a physical stress on the body, especially if you have had an encounter with the most recent thing going around everywhere, which I feel hesitant to mention by name. And kind of the long version of that, it is entirely possible that there has been some stress put on the system, and specifically with the Myelin Sheath. I have been taking, I think for about 5 weeks now, a course. It's been over 20 hours. It's been an incredible experience with an herbalist, and I will link his information down below. He has a storefront where he does sell some of these remedies, but he's kind of like a one-man show, so sometimes his shipping times are kind of long. So just to keep that in mind, if you want something immediately, you may look locally, although his stuff is incredibly good. He also has an amazing amount of information on his site specific to some of these ideas. But anyway, if you don't know what the Myelin Sheath is, like me, I had never heard of it before I was taking this class with him. It is basically the fatty like insulation around our nerve cells, which is basically like an insulated electrical wire, if you can imagine it. If I can find a royalty-free Myelin Sheath image, I will insert it here so that you can see it. Okay, so hopefully you saw that image of the healthy Myelin Sheath and then the one that is damaged. And so basically what he's been talking about in the class, especially dealing with this big thing going around, that especially the long-term versions of the infection, but any kind of like stress or infection in the body can also be damaging to this Myelin Sheath. And it can literally, physically make you less able to handle stresses, anxieties, emotional issues. So especially for somebody like myself who already has ADHD and deals with some of those symptoms anyway, because it's just sort of, it's a package deal. You're kind of a creative genius, but you're like, you know, so it's a little bit of a package deal. And I don't personally look at ADHD as a disorder. I think of it more like just a difference, like there's just sort of a different way that brains process. And I think a lot of the issues that we face is our disconnection from kind of more like the natural world and the natural way of things. I am much like many people with ADHD. I'm an extremely physical person. I love, running. I'm moving all of the time. I'm, doing all kinds of stuff you would not know to look at me, but I am an extremely physical person. And I think back when life was more natural and you were out in the sun getting plenty of vitamin D and moving more throughout the day, I think a lot of these like mental differences weren't quite as pronounced because people were in the environment that supported them, and then they were creative and they were able to come up with things. And anyway, so that's kind of my little spiel about ADHD and how I feel about that. But it is true. So like the infections, but also just prolonged emotional stress, anxiety, lack of sleep, all kinds of things can come into this kind of deterioration of the Myelin Sheath. And so it's extremely important to keep it strong and rebuild it, because you can physically, like on a physical level, make yourself better able to deal with stress, stressors, anxiety, anything that comes up. I know that like just recently I've been seeing preppers beginning to speak to anxiety and stress, because there's a lot of people who, when they prep from a place of stress and anxiety. Or it can also be that keeping abreast of current events and looking into that just sort of ends up causing stress and anxiety. People, if you remain in that headspace, for me personally, I feel more like, okay, I find out about a thing, I prep for that thing, and now I don't have to think about it anymore. That's for me in my own personal life with my prepping. I feel like it relieves anxiety and it relieves stress, also because I do purposefully not stay caught up in all of the videos where everybody's discussing every theory or whatever. I will watch a little bit of that, but not a lot. If I notice myself feeling like, then I stop watching. That's just sort of my own personal way of keeping track of it. But I also really love the fact from a lot of what this herbalist has been talking about and teaching, I love that there is a physical component to it, and it helps to relieve, I guess, the stress and the anxiety of the feelings of weakness and the feelings of not being good enough in a certain area. Like I know for me personally, it's taken me into my late 30s to even admit that I deal with these things because I saw it as weakness. I judged myself very harshly for every single time I felt the stress or the anxiety or whatever, and I'm always about pushing forward and being excellent, but recognizing that it isn't a weakness in myself. It's just something that I'm dealing with. And this has been another layer to helping me with just sort of realizing that. And so taking some of the burden off of myself, that I am not, weak or pathetic because I deal with these things, that especially considering these last few years, not only in my own personal life, some of the most difficult few years of my life, but with everything that's been going on in the world, I believe that there are many people right now who have been suffering from kind of a long-term low-grade stress that potentially has been eating away at that myelin sheath, and they have created a physical thing in their body that is kind of creating more of the same. So that insulating sheath, again, I'm not an expert, but this is what I have learned so far, is basically the very thing, almost like an insulated electrical wire that allows electrical impulses to be sent by, via the nerves in the brain and the spinal cord, so that you have like an efficient movement of those electrical pulses. So like I said, when the sheath is deteriorated, you have a physical reason that impulses are not sent as quickly or as well, which increases the stress, increases the anxiety, and all of that. So now that we've talked enough about that, how about we go ahead and get into some of the herbal support that you can use, very accessible, inexpensive herbal support that you can use to help to rebuild some of that. All right, so first up, we've got Oatstraw, and also specifically Milky oat tops. If you can get your hands on that. I don't have any of that. I have Oatstraw, so I'm using Oatstraw, which also is extremely benefit to the nerves, but Milky oat tops are also incredibly good. These are still nice and green. If you can't probably see from the lighting, it doesn't look like it, but basically if you order Oatstraw or Milky oat tops, as long as they're still green, they should still be pretty effective. If you get brown Oatstraw or brown Milky oat tops, then they're kind of too old and they won't really be effective anymore. But this is an extremely inexpensive herbal aid that is incredibly powerful for the nervous system. I have some notes here, so pardon me as I just read off the notes because it's way too much information for me to try to remember. So Oatstraw is also extremely nourishing to the body, which I think is another great like a reason why it is so effective. We've got silica, magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, chromium, iron, alkaloids, protein, B vitamins, and vitamins A and C. It's an extremely nutritious and helpful thing to add into your herbal protocols. It supports sexual health, likely because of its other benefits. That's my note. It is known, but it's not like it isn't really an herbal aphrodisiac, so you don't necessarily have to worry about it revving you up if you don't want that. It's just especially specifically for people who have kind of a low libido that is caused by nervous exhaustion and all kinds of other things. As it repairs those things, they find that the healthy sex drive returns. And so that is just, it's just a healthy thing. When you are a healthy person, typically you just have that because you're healthy, right? So anyway, it's just a part of being human. And it also soothes and strengthens the nerves. It also helps to create physical, mental, and emotional strength and resilience. This is what it is known for, apart from this whole Myelin Sheath thing, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. It is also wonderful for kind of stress-related skin conditions, any kind of eczema or like rash that comes up because of stress, but it also seems to be really helpful in treating poison ivy and other kinds of skin conditions like that. Oats specifically, I believe, as a topical because of the mucilage that they contain, but also as an internal drink with the Oatstraw or the Milky oat tops, because it helps to calm a lot of the stuff that's going on in the body. It like calms and it repairs nerves and is just an incredible nervine. It relieves exhaustion, depression, insomnia, and anxiety. And again, I think so much of it has to do with how nourishing it is. It's incredible. Robin Rose Bennett also mentions in her book, A Gift of Healing Herbs, that it is excellent for muscle repair and muscle soreness. So especially after a really hard workout, if you include Oatstraw in your tea blends for, building and supporting your system, you'll notice faster recovery and muscle repair is easy. Or easier. And so you can make yourself a good infusion of Milky oat tops or a tincture, or you can also turn the oat straw into tea. But what I have begun to do, per Robin Rose Bennett's advice, again, in The Gift of Healing Herbs, she likes to actually boil her oat straw for about 10 minutes before she does the rest of the infusion. And so one of the main things that this herbalist I'm taking the class from has recommended, especially for women, is a 50-50 combination of oat straw and nettle tea. And so we're going to get into Nettles in just a second. But he says it's just so particularly wonderful for women, especially women who find themselves kind of strung out, irritable, where like everything sets you off and makes you angry, that this is sort of a sign that not necessarily that everything around, like everyone around you is terrible or whatever, but it's like a sign that inside you yourself are depleted and needing some nourishment. And so especially because both Oatstraw and Nettle are high in iron, that you end up getting like a nice iron infusion. It helps to relax you. Iron is so essential for so many things in the body. And even if you're not necessarily iron deficient, it ends up being something that can really help support your body and support your mood. But also because it seems like it directly repairs nerves. And it has that effect, Oatstraw specifically. And so I don't know if we know the mechanism by which Oatstraw repairs nerves, but I think it's entirely possible, and it's not too much of a leap to think that maybe it aids with the repairing of the Myelin Sheath, and that is why it seems to have such an amazing effect. And I have to say that even after only maybe about a week of doing Oatstraw and Nettle infusions, I have noticed a massive difference in my mood and in my general anxiety, general feelings of well-being and relaxation and happiness, even though, I don't know if it's TMI, but I feel like I need to share that this is typically the time of the month, knowing my cycle, where I would be experiencing the most emotional issues and ups and downs and problems, specifically with hormones and all of this stuff. Basically, for me, I am one of those who notices that directly post-ovulation, I begin to have emotional issues basically until I have my period. And then once I start my period, it's like the sun is back out and I have, happiness again. But for whatever, like that period in between ovulation and actually starting my cycle, I have a massively difficult time with my emotions and my stress. And it has been night and day for me this time. Also, I'm very happy to report I haven't had a single hot flash. And typically at ovulation is when I start having horrible hot flashes until my cycle starts. So truly excellent news for me, right? And really everyone around me. Even though I do my absolute best to not put my emotional issues on other people. But this is typically the time when, if I'm going to snap at someone, I do. And I have those moments too. I know some people say that they like can't even imagine that. It can happen. So I try really hard not to, but it can happen. So I have just been noticing such an incredible relief from those kinds of symptoms. And so, yeah, I'm a major believer in just the simplicity of just this Oatstraw and Nettles. So the way that I do it, because everybody wants to know recipes and dosages, I use about, for a total of a half cup of herb per half gallon. So it would end up being a full cup of dried herbs for a gallon. And sometimes when I'm making my teas, I tend to make either a half gallon or a gallon, and I do it in a saucepan. And actually, because again, I have noticed such an amazing, wonderful result from this tea just in such a short time, I'm going to be making a video showing exactly how I do it. But so that you don't have to wait for that video, if you're watching this video right now and you are still watching, it's likely that you are hungry for the information. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to you right now. So basically, if I'm making a half gallon of tea, I will put 8 cups of water. Sorry, I had a moment where I was like, wait, how many cups again in a gallon? 8 cups of water into a saucepan. I will get it boiling. And then I'll put a 1/4 cup of oat straw into the water, cover the pan, reduce the heat a little so it's still boiling inside, but not like, massively boiling. And then I'll let it boil for 10 minutes covered. Like Robin Rose Bennett says, she likes to boil her oat straw. And so then I will remove it from the heat, turn the heat off, remove it from the heat, and add my 1/4 cup of Nettles and stir it all up, cover it again, and let it infuse for at least an hour. And then I go ahead and go through the straining process. And now I have 2 quarts of tea. If I've made a half gallon, I'll have 2 quarts of tea, and that will be 1 quart for one day and 1 quart for another day. If I wanted to make, a full gallon, that would give me basically 4 days worth of tea. But to me, I feel like that's pushing it. So I tend to do a half gallon at a time. And because just with, or if I make the full gallon, I might give myself 3 days, but then give some to my daughter, give some to my sons, because it's still really good for them too. But yeah, that's basically exactly how I do it. But I will be making a video showing how that recipe actually works in case you want the instructions, but here you go. But now, let's go ahead and talk about Nettles. Okay, so here's my Nettles from Mountain Rose Herbs. I have another bag exactly like this. I just don't have a jar big enough, so they're not in their jars yet. I tend to like to store my herbs in jars just because plastic is not really airtight and they seem to stay fresher longer that way. But when it comes to things like Nettle, like I'm going to go through, even though I got 2 pounds of Nettles, we're going to go through this pretty quickly. And so I don't necessarily worry about it too much, but like I said, I'm just waiting for like a gallon jar. I need to empty a gallon jar somewhere so that I can have a large enough jar to store my Nettles. But basically, Nettles, Oatstraw as well, I find myself completely in love with these kinds of plants that are basically almost like weeds, or like Oatstraw is almost like just the leftovers of the process of getting oats. And so it's like just the grass that's left over from getting the milky oat tops, but it is still so incredibly nourishing. I have a personal feeling with my herbalism that even though I'm going to talk about a few things that are like not as easy to access, I feel almost like the more accessible a plant is, the more powerful it is, because it's my personal belief that God made these things and he made some of these weeds like dandelion, like nettles, like they were created on purpose to be so ridiculously hardy, so ridiculously accessible, so that even if you have nothing, you still have access to things that are nutritive and will restore your body and keep you healthy, because I believe that God wants us to experience health and joy in this life, that it isn't just about, promises are not just about getting to heaven, it's about having a good life here and now. Like that's how he shows his goodness to us, by creating all of these amazing plants that are so easy to access. And if we just have the knowledge, we'll be able to take them and just create good lives for ourselves. Anyway, but that's what I believe. And so I love things like Nettles. I love things like Oatstraw and some of those super accessible things. And so let's go ahead and talk really fast about Nettles. I have my notes. So people, actually, this is new for me, but it came up a couple of times while I was researching, and I'm mentioning it because I'm about to do this for myself. People take nettle capsules for allergies. And so we have a little bit of an allergic thing going through the house right now. So I'm going to be powdering some of my nettles and turning them into capsules. to have on hand for people to take for allergies. One thing I do know about nettles, and I've seen it in my own life, that it can help to, it's possible, I have to be really careful the way I say this, it's possible that it can help with lowering blood pressure because it increases the elasticity of the veins. Specifically, it relaxes and tonifies veins and capillaries. So we're not so much talking about arteries, although it probably does have some effect on that. It just seems like nettles has a particular affinity for strengthening and tonifying kind of smaller veins and smaller capillaries, like at the edges of the blood system. I'm completely blanking on what that's called. Circulatory system. There we go. At the edges of that. And so it can really help. Also for me personally, I believe I have seen it really help with viscosities and things like that. Also, it's another one of those that I think one of the reasons that it is so helpful for so many things is because of how nourishing it is. So it is full of vitamins A, C, K, and B vitamins. It is rich in iron, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and naturally occurring sodium. It is also a really great source of different fats: linoleic, linolenic, palmitic, stearic, and oleic acids. It has a full amino acid profile. It has camphorol, I don't know if I pronounced that right, quercetin, calmarins, and I'm going to put that on the screen because I'm not sure that I even wrote that correct, and other flavonoids and polyphenols. It is rich in beta-carotene, lutein, luteoxanthin, and many other things. It treats, and again, because it's so nourishing, it treats adrenal exhaustion. So specifically, if your exhaustion is because you are just depleted, especially if, like, for a very long time you have been using coffee or caffeine or like energy drinks to just prop yourself up so that you can manage to get through the day, that kind of like adrenal exhaustion, it exhausts your adrenals. You lose the ability almost to create your own energy from your own body by using too many of these stimulants for too long. Also, caffeine and excessive use of coffee and things like that can also contribute greatly to stress and anxiety, as an FYI. Something that I also believe that I have seen in my own life since I quit caffeine, or quit using it regularly. It doesn't mean that I absolutely never will have a coffee. I still really like coffee, but it is no longer a daily or even like every other day part of my routine. It's like maybe once every couple weeks or something I get a coffee, if that. So it's something that is definitely to keep in mind. You can attack it from all angles, but if you're not ready to quit coffee, don't turn off the video. Just start drinking nettles, and it can start helping to replenish some of that adrenal exhaustion. I've said it before, and I need to start verifying if this is true or not, that I'm pretty sure that it is in traditional Chinese medicine, that there's almost like a quote or concept that says that if you use things like you use stimulants, because I don't think they were not specifically talking about coffee, because I don't think that in traditional Chinese medicine they had coffee. That's like a New World thing, isn't it? Anyway, that essentially you're getting energy today by borrowing it from tomorrow. You're taking energy from tomorrow and putting it into today when you're using too many stimulants and stuff. So basically, like, you are robbing potential time off of your life, but also quality of life in your older age. And so that's kind of a concept that they have. And I don't know. I think it's a neat, interesting idea that it's better for us to create natural energy from within ourselves, from a healthy, nourished system, rather than by kind of, like I said, like just prop it, like you're propped up almost like a puppet on strings, and you're not really doing the things that you do from your own inner strength and light coming out, like your own purpose shining into the world. You're just sort of being dragged by whatever stimulant that you have been using. And that's the only way that I can think of to describe it, because that's honestly how I had begun to feel sort of at the tail end of when I ended up quitting caffeine. And I feel a lot better now after doing that. And so Nettles also, again, I just think it's like nourishment But there's like something about nettles, and it's not necessarily specific to repairing the myelin sheath. This is more about nourishing and supporting the body while you are doing that work. And so it's a really powerful thing. So I'm putting it in here because, like I said, that combination of the nettle and Oatstraw tea has already been so helpful to me that I feel like I have to mention it. And like I said, I will be doing a video on exactly how I make the tea, even though I already gave you the instructions. I don't know that you need a video, but I will do it just in case somebody out there needs it. And so, yeah, nettles are an incredible thing to include into your diet. I have heard, and basically everybody says that nettles are like, they're practically a panacea. Like, they practically are a cure-all. And again, I think it goes back to the nutrition, the extreme form of bioavailable nutrition that is in those nettles. And getting them into your body is basically flooding your body with minerals and vitamins. Things like calcium, I think, are another thing. Like iron is a great thing, but also calcium, and Oatstraw and nettles are also both really rich in calcium. And Rosemary Gladstar, in her book, it's an excellent book. It's an older book. It's hard to find. I actually found it at a used bookstore. Just a second. This book is incredible, especially for, I was using it a lot during my pregnancy and my nursing years, because she goes into a lot of information about what herbs you can actually use during pregnancy, which is kind of hard to find a resource that has that. But this is also great for menopause and PMS and all kinds of stuff. Like, this is an incredible book. I feel like almost any woman who's really interested in their health should get this book. But she does mention specifically calcium being another thing that's extremely important for any kind of extreme PMS and hormonal symptoms. And so I think that, so it's something to keep in mind for, you know, preventing some of those issues. And just, again, I think it just goes back to nourishment. I hate to be like a broken record, but I really feel like nourishment is the key, because our bodies have been, you know, obviously there are times when people have issues that you know, just nutrition is not going to fix. And I get that. I'm not like some Pollyanna, like up on a cloud here, thinking that literally everything can be fixed with nutrition. But I think the vast majority of people and the issues that they have, if they just flooded their bodies with nutrition, suddenly their bodies would begin to work and do what they are kind of designed to do, which is to work. So anyway, nettles are incredible. I don't think that I could say enough about that, but I need to go ahead and move on. And let's go ahead and talk about lemon balm. Okay, so lemon balm, a very popular, very well-loved, much-used nervine, famous for its effect on the nerves and calming anxiety and all kinds of things. Lemon balm is just a fantastic little plant to have. That's lemon balm from my garden. So I store it whole. If you purchase it from somewhere, you're probably going to get it purchased and it's going to be crumbled already, but that's why mine looks like that and potentially looks different from the one that you will receive. So I just wanted to mention that. It's from my own garden. I store it whole to keep it fresh for as long as possible. Anyway, lemon balm is so much more than just a nervine, even though it really does help the nerves. It is antibacterial, antiviral, antispasmodic, and then also antidepressant. It is an extremely calming herb. Like I said, it promotes good sleep, but it's not a sedative. It's not like a sedative herb like some of the others that people take specifically for sleep, but it just has sort of this action where it helps calm you down. And I think specifically, especially like if you can't sleep because you're stressed and you have like racing thoughts, lemon balm can kind of help with some of that. It relieves indigestion too. It's famous as a digestive aid and helper for any kind of issues. I believe that it even can help heal stomach lining after things like H. pylori infections, even like ulcers. It's extremely soothing and wonderful. It also reduces stress and anxiety, like I said, and all of that, like the stress, anxiety, calming. I wonder too if that potentially is because of the action that it has with helping to repair and restore that myelin sheath. So this is one that my herbalist I've been taking my class from has mentioned specifically, as well as the Milky oat tops and Oatstraw, that they are specific to repairing that myelin sheath and creating that physical restoration to help the body in general. And it isn't only stress and anxiety. There's all kinds of things with the electrical impulses of our nerves that system being as healthy as possible is the best for our long-term health. But also he was mentioning studies that have been showing too, as they're studying more about this, that, like, for instance, every single Alzheimer's patient that they studied had severe deterioration of their myelin sheath. And so it's also entirely possible that working at repairing these things, now it's not an official thing, but it's like, why not? Why would you not at least try? Working at repairing these things while you're still younger, or perhaps even before Alzheimer's sets in, that those kinds of things could actually potentially even prevent the onset of things like Alzheimer's. So that's something that I wanted to throw out there. So lemon balm also, interestingly, it's one of those herbs that seems to have opposite effects. It also can help produce alertness and aid concentration. So like for mental acuity. And so, oh yeah, I got ahead of myself in my notes. It can also improve memory and problem solving. So it has possible benefits for people with Alzheimer's. But again, I'm wondering if that has to do with the fact that it helps to repair that myelin sheath and increases the electrical impulses, like the successful electrical impulse of the nerve system. And so that's potentially why it might have a benefit in that area. But in general, even without having Alzheimer's, it improves memory, improves concentration. It's great for problem solving. So now, as far as I'm concerned, this is like the main herb for my son, my 20, almost 21-year-old. He's almost 21, in college, and he has a lot going on. And he has told me recently, Mom, you know, like, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious. And so lemon balm is something that I'm doing for him, to help him with the calming, but also to increase memory and alertness. So it's like, it's, I think like now I'm thinking like lemon balm is like the college student herb. So if you have a college student in your life, they need to be drinking some lemon balm tea. It's also because it's antiviral that there's been seen that it can help, like just drinking the tea, and I believe even like with topical application, it can decrease the healing time of cold sores by half. And there's also potentially for people who have a herpes virus, you know, with herpes outbreaks, lemon balm can help lessen the severity of those outbreaks and also just help to relieve some of those symptoms. And so lemon balm is just a great one to have on hand for so many reasons. And so, yeah, I wanted to mention it in this video. The final herbal or plant support that I wanted to mention is in the form of mushroom powders. And so I wanted to make these all aesthetic and put them into jars for you, but honestly, this is just how I've been storing them, just like in their bags. And so we've got reishi powder, chaga mushroom powder, and the real one for the myelin sheath anyway is the lion's mane mushroom powder. And so I wanted to mention all of those because I've also been adding the mushroom powders into my life, like where I make like a chai, or I do I'll make maybe even like some of my homemade hot chocolate mix, or into soups. Like last night I made a big soup and I put a couple spoonfuls of a mix of these 3 that I have created that I put into the soup for everybody to begin. And it's kind of for everyone to begin getting kind of micro doses of these mushroom powders over time to help with all the various things that they help with. I think that mushrooms are incredibly powerful in a medicinal way. And so these are the ones where I'm saying like they might not be quite as accessible to most people, but a little bit goes a long way. You don't have to take a huge amount in order to see an effect. Honestly, the effect is going to happen like I was mentioning, just kind of with little micro doses over time. Consistently, that's where the results are seen. So the lion's mane specifically, like I said, is more for the myelin sheath. It helps the brain. It's supportive to the brain. It improves memory. It boosts creativity and helps concentration, and it activates that nervous system. So it has also been shown to repair the myelin sheath, and there has actually been work done with lion's mane mushroom specifically for people who deal with multiple sclerosis, which is a disease, from my understanding, I may be incorrect, that is very much exacerbated by or caused by the deterioration, or causes, I can't tell, the deterioration of the myelin sheath. Like that is something that they're looking at specifically for multiple sclerosis patients. And it does seem like it halts the, it can halt or slow down the progression of the disease. It's not a cure, but what I'm saying is that lion's mane mushroom is being used even in that kind of extreme case. So definitely, if you do not have MS, if you do not already have Alzheimer's, if you're in a place where you can start doing some preventive medicine, and especially if you're concerned about these things, My great grandmother passed away with Alzheimer's. So it's definitely something that I kind of think about. So I'm including lion's mane now kind of in my own personal protocol to hopefully prevent some of these things. If it doesn't prevent anything, I don't know. I'm not really out anything. It's still really beneficial and helpful in the meantime. So I'm going to be using that. And I just mentioned the reishi and the chaga because those are things that I have put in. It's kind of almost like the nettles where it's like, it's not like they, specifically do that repairing of the myelin sheath, but I believe that they offer some great support while the healing and restoration of that is going on. So like with reishi specifically, it helps to balance body and mind. It really helps to calm. It promotes better sleep. It lowers your cortisol, lowers the stress responses, and helps to regulate your hormonal system. So that is sort of, like I said, just sort of about supporting the rest of the body and helping with some of those other things that happen, like when you have your stress and your anxiety and hormones get out of whack, like it just becomes this whole mess. And so that is to help kind of support some of the background stuff while the repair work of the source, I believe, is going on. And then chaga is just because it is one of the highest sources of antioxidant in the world. It's just an incredibly nutritious mushroom. It's rich in vitamins B and D and tons of minerals, and it's just fantastic for immunity and for keeping your immune system strong, which is super important in this time, of course. But this is sort of like nourishing and very famously for immunity, and that's why I've included chaga in my little mushroom blend. So because accessibility is a huge, huge part of my passion for herbalism and healing in general, I wanted to share something that is not about herbalism, because what if you want to go ahead and get yourself some lemon balm or some Oatstraw or some Nettles, you just don't have it right now? What could you possibly start doing right now to lessen stress and anxiety in your body? Because stress and anxiety is not only, it isn't only caused by myelin sheath degradation, but it also causes myelin sheath degradation, prolonged periods of stress, prolonged periods of anxiety, prolonged periods of very little sleep and things like that. It does physical damage. And so even before the physical damage is fixed, if you can also start working on the stress and the anxiety that causes some of that damage, I think it's a really great approach to take. Just sort of hit it from every angle that you possibly can. And so number one, accessibility wise, is just simply deep breathing. Just sitting with your eyes closed, taking a nice deep breath, holding it for a little while, releasing. Take a nice deep breath, hold it for a little while, release. And then whatever count works for you, whatever count you can do that is relaxing. So that's why I'm not giving you a specific number, because I don't know what your lung health is. For some people, a 3 count, like in for 3, hold for 3, out for 3, is like all that they can manage. For some people, they can go up to like 8 or 9 or 10. But if you find yourself like you're holding your breath and it's beginning to feel almost like a panicking thing, go ahead and release it, because the point is to relax doing that. It's kind of an incredible thing. We have the vagus nerve from our brain kind of coming down is actually activated by deep breathing. You can change your body from a sympathetic fight or flight response state into the parasympathetic rest and relax, rest and digest state just by the act of breathing deeply. You can actually control that via the deep breath mechanism and the vagus nerve. You can do that yourself. So it's kind of an amazing thing that we have this ability to do that. So even if you don't have your herbs yet, or maybe just while you're waiting for your tea to brew, just take your time, do deep breath, hold it for a while, release. It's an incredibly powerful thing. Also, one of the things I wanted to mention that I have personally begun to use in my own life, and I'm seeing a lot of good results, and I'm kind of a little bit like afraid to share this because I know that some people are really not going to like it. But I feel like it's just a powerful and, again, accessible thing, completely free. And it's the use of mudras. So my herbal practice is definitely influenced very heavily by Ayurvedic tradition. And yoga and yogic practice and mudra are basically hand poses. Probably the one that everyone's familiar with is this one. This is the one everybody does as a joke, right? And so that is actually a mudra. And so it's basically like yoga for your hands. And the thought behind it is that depending on where you're putting your thumb, where you're putting your fingers, you're activating the different prana, like energy channels in your body, and creating almost like a feedback loop that creates a healing energy of a specific kind for specific things. And whether or not you believe that that's true, I'm honestly, if I'm 100% honest, I'm not 100% sure that it's true or not. But one of the things that I think is that there's like no harm in it. I don't personally think that it's like contrary to my faith to potentially believe that our bodies have a complex energy system within them. Traditional Chinese medicine definitely talks about the meridians and the energy points of the body. And so I don't think that that's necessarily contrary to Christian faith. And so, because I am a Christian, and I know there's a lot of people who are Christians who watch me and who might be questioning my religion now. But I don't think that there's anything anti-God in that. It's just I am not personally in those belief systems, but I don't necessarily dismiss out of hand something that people who have observed and seen results for thousands of years. I'm not going to just say like, oh no, there's no way that that's true, or you know what I mean? But anyway, but again, because of the fact that they're so accessible, just simply a hand pose, especially for something like stress or anxiety, especially as somebody with ADHD, with stress, with anxiety, with that different kind of mental, just a different kind of brain. I have a huge tactile need to like I have a texture thing. Like if there's an interesting texture, for instance, I catch myself like rubbing the texture, because it's like it's just something with that ADHD brain. You're constantly seeking input. You're constantly seeking something. And so being able to calm that kind of brain sometimes takes like a tactile experience. And for me, I have noticed these mudras have become something like that for me in my life. And so maybe especially if you deal with that, or if you have a child on the spectrum, or you have, somebody who could really benefit from kind of a low-key concentration that calms the thoughts of the brain and takes that like constant like da, 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 like chatter and turns it into just like something like that. And for me, I feel like the mudras do that. So it's kind of a low-grade concentration on whatever form or pose your hand is taking at the time. And so for me, it's been extremely beneficial. So there's one in particular for anxiety, and I'm going to be linking an article down below, which does definitely have mention of Hindu faith, but I'm going to link it down below, and you can take whatever information you want and discard whichever information you do not want. But this particular pose, it was funny. As soon as I saw it, I tried it and I felt immediate calm. And so again, I think it's sometimes just calming down the brain. And if you can try this for a few minutes every day while deep breathing at the same time, see if there isn't a powerful effect. And for me, it feels quite powerful. I feel extremely relaxed when I am done doing this. And so not only deep breathing, but this. And I think, again, it's because you're concentrating just a little bit on maintaining that pose that it helps to quiet your mind even further. So anyway, for this particular one, it is called the Apanvayu Mudra, and I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly. You take your index finger, put it in the fold of your thumb, and then your thumb comes up and touches these two fingers. So see, as the thumb comes up, index finger goes into the fold of the thumb, and then you touch these two fingers, and then the pinky is left extended. Okay? And so you can just rest that on your knees while you're doing your deep breathing, and then see if it doesn't bring you some nice amount of calm. Again, I feel like the basic premise behind this is about the energy flow of the body and accessing certain energy flows. But you can decide for yourself if you're comfortable with that or not. But I just, again, like I said, it's accessibility. So if you have $0 and you cannot access any of this stuff, or again, if you have to order it and it's not here yet, is there something that you can begin to do to lessen the stress so that you can stop the deterioration of that myelin sheath. If you've been experiencing that stress before you get the stuff that helps you repair it, I don't know. But anyway, that is what I wanted to offer to you, and hopefully it's helpful and it brings you some peace and some joy in your life. So definitely let me know down below if you have anything specifically to say about any of this, because I know there's so much more than just what I covered here. And I welcome your experience and your expertise down in the comments, and I hope that people will find a good resource for all things stress relief, stress reduction. And yeah, anyway, that's it for me. So as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. I'm going to be putting all kinds of links down in the description box below, so definitely access those for some of the information here. And yeah, I wish you many calm, peaceful, richly, just, I don't know, beautiful days. All right, that's it. See you guys later. Bye.